So again, good afternoon and welcome to the series of educational meetings about gender equality in the workforce. Today we will be starting off by discussing Me Too and the workplace. My name is Helga, first things first, and I will be curating these meetings today. I am the Vice President of the Icelandic Women's Rights Association, that is a co-host of this series. And to talk about Me Too and the workplace, we have Fríða Rós with us, and she is a feminist activist, former president of the Women's Rights Association, in Iceland, and now working as a head of education for a local labor union. And of course, my sister in the fight for gender equality here in Iceland and around the globe. And as I said, she's going to be talking about Me Too in the workplace, as Me Too has exposed an endemic culture of sexual harassment, as we all know, and violence in the workplace. In Iceland, following hundreds of Me Too stories shared by the government and the members in the labor market, have proposed and enacted concrete actions taking and proposed in a combat in order to combat workplace harassment. Now, Fríða, as a gender specialist, will discuss the Me Too movements and actions taken in response. So, Fríða, if you want to introduce yourself further or just go ahead and take over, the floor is yours. Yes, you have unmuted yourself, and do you have slides, Fríða, that you will be sharing?
Yes, I have slides.
Okay, let me just make sure that you are able to share slides by making you co-host.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. So you should be able to share your screen now, and I will mute myself. And maybe for practical matters, if you have questions for Fríða, I guess Fríða would like to take them at the end of her talk. And you can also post questions in the chat and we will take them from there, or you can raise your hand and ask to speak after Fríða has given her talk. Take it away, Fríða.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming. I am going to talk about Me Too in Iceland today. I was supposed to talk about everything that's happened at the workplaces after Me Too, but there are not so many things to talk about there. So we're still on the phase where we are negotiating what to do, I would have to say. And I just realized, like, first in COVID, I was always so fixed on how my background would look. I had like a pick up a flower and everything, but now, like 1 year later, like whatever, I'm just having a white wall and just relax. So what I'm going to start with is talk about the gender system and what kind of society we live in. First, it's the gendered system. The gendered system is an analysis of the gendered world of power we live in. Everywhere we look, this system appears to us, where the imbalance is gigantic. And here is a list of some of the patterns. And I'm not saying that men are not raped or men are not survivors of violence, but this is the gendered system we live in. Women have lower wages. Women are in the lowest paid jobs. Foreign women are in the lower class than Icelandic. Women take more care of children and the elderly. It's unpaid and paid. Sorry, it's unpaid twice there. Women are much more raped than men. Men are by far the largest majority of rapists. Men are by far the largest majority of perpetrators in incest cases. Women with foreign background are more likely to be sexually abused. Women with disability are more likely to be sexually abused. Gay people are exposed to a lot of violence, especially trans women. Women are much more responsible for the household. Women are much more responsible for the emotional labor in the family and household. A quarter of women in Iceland have experienced sexual violence after the age of 16. We don't even have that many numbers on these, but at least I can say this. The majority of women have experienced sexual violence or harassment, like all women. Inside the system of the genders, we have rape culture. And what is rape culture? I got this text from two gender specialists, or I forgot the word. Yeah, one is professor in University of Iceland. Another one is working on research on feminism. So, rape culture. In a rape culture, the use of force and domination is considered sexy, which boosts the sexual aggression of men. Men form social bonds between themselves by sexually harassing women. They are not only using the force and humiliating women, but also strengthening their position and the ties between them within the male group. Evidence of such relationships and how women are kept under control by men in Iceland is found in research on sexual harassment in Icelandic school culture, sexual violence in adolescent relationships, work culture and gender relations in the police, and sexual harassment at the city of Reykjavik and the University of Iceland. This is just a research that have been made recently, where you look at the gendered system and the connection between men and women in workplaces. But like I said before, it's not just men and women; it's all minority, people with minority backgrounds, or minority groups, part of minority groups, like people with disability. So, and in Iceland, inside of this gendered system that we have this rape culture, and it's just blooming. We have like a perfect condition for rape culture in our society. And here we have a more like a graphic visuality of the rape culture. And this is to emphasize that the culture is not only the worst graphics that we see, the worst stories, which is like murder, something like that. It's also maintained by rape jokes, boys will be boys, unequal pay, sexist attitudes, and all of this that you see in the lowest part of this triangle. So it's all connected. It's all part of the same culture. And when we talk about the Me Too in a workplace, often we are talking about the lowest layer. So we don't stop the small jokes. We don't stop, like, kind of innocent, about a fat woman or whatever it is that we kind of let people say, even though we have started to stop, some of the jokes or some of the culture. And in this rape culture, we tolerate sexual violence. We just tolerate it. We just have it in our society, and we don't stop it. we try to help people after they have been raped or been through a sexual violence, but we are not stopping that from happening in a way that we should and we have to. But sometimes we get some kind of like regular waves where there's a click in the tolerance towards gender-based violence, for violence against women and children. And for far too long, there has been silence in our country about the fact that a large proportion of women and far too many children are victims of violence. And women have whispered their violence, they have reported it, they have cried it, they have screamed it for a very long time. Women have been talking. They have been talking about the violence they have experienced. And then on November 24th in 2017, women in politics shared their stories of sexual violence and harassment within their sector. As a result, the stories of more groups appeared. There were a total of 30 groups. 17 of them actually published their stories, but 30 groups were gathering stories, so we haven't even seen all of it in Icelandic media, or like it's still hidden. It's about those stories that were published. They're like 800, and about 6,000 women signed the statements from the groups. So it's quite a lot of people there, women there. The groups were categorized according to the labor market. So women in politics issued a statement together, women in movies and theaters did the same, and so forth. In the bank industry and stuff. But there are also groups outside of this kind of categories. For example, like foreign women in Iceland, they had their own statement in own group, and that was by far the most disgusting stories of all the stories that were published. That is very interesting. And now in 2021, victims are stepping forward again. And in the vast majority of cases, it is women. They're stepping forward under their own, they're using their own name and telling their own stories by themselves. We do not know how many those stories are, but there are hundreds and even thousands. And when I'm talking about those who published the stories, then there are those who share their stories within like closed groups on Facebook, on social media, and not just Facebook. And those who share to their loved ones, and those who write stories down for themselves. A wave like Me Too 2, part 2, has a multiple effect. It's like when you throw a stone into water, and the water, it goes in waves like this in all directions. And this is like also with those stories, because they don't only affect the women, they affect the women around them. And also victims, they start like reflecting themselves in their other stories. And together we are like feeling that they are much more women are pushing forward the need of justice with those cases, like sexual offenses cases, because our system is not taking them seriously like they should be. And one thing I find interesting in the difference between 2017 and 2021 waves. And the first waves, many women put their names under a lot of stories. That means that no one knew who had each story, so all the women shared the burden of and responsibility together. And they all stood together behind the stories and the current, in the stories. In the current wave, like now, women are telling their stories on their social media and in other media. Many of them come up with more detailed descriptions of the violence than in the first wave. and give a good idea of who the perpetrator is. They don't say the name, but they give a lot of information. Some of them give a lot of information, like who it is. And that creates a pool of potential perpetrators, even a group of very few. And some are under suspicion until the perpetrator itself reveals himself. And first, then the innocent ones of the group are free. So they are, by doing this, the perpetrators, they are under more pressure to actually come forward with their story of what their action, what they did. And many victims, they find that many victims find that, sorry, I lost my track here. Yeah. So this is a bridge. It's called the bridge between two continents. And it's a small footbridge over a major fissure, which provides clear evidence of the presence of the two plates, the European plates and North America plates. It's situated in northwest of Iceland. And I love this place, but I always, I often think of the situation on these two flakes that we have. They are moving and they are separate. And for me now, we have kind of no bridge between, and we really need to find solutions to combine those two different worlds that we kind of live in. Because now, we have survivors telling their stories about their violence, often in the workplace. And it is their right to actually say what happened. And there was a violation, there was a perpetrator, there is a consequences for the survivor, there are consequences for others. It does not matter whether the perpetrators have committed his offense and admitted his offense or not. And so survivors, they feel very strongly about their civic duty to actually prevent other women to experience the same violence they've been through. And this is a very key issue. We want to say who did what, just to say that, be careful. And one pattern that has been going on in Iceland for the last 2 years, at least 10 years, is that if survivors say the name of the perpetrator, or if one openly says that a rapist is a rapist, it has been a long time now that they have been charged. They get a letter from a lawyer, and if they don't put all the information down and apologize, they are threatened to pay a huge amount of money. And it's not one or two. There's quite a lot of people that have received a letter like that. So you're always under attack if you tell somebody what somebody did to you. So we're not in the same flake. And perpetrators who have stepped forward since the last Me Too movement has talked about bad communication or crossing boundaries. And we do not have to read many stories to make it clear that it is not the description of what happened. Most survivors say that it is the most difficult task that they go through is to report the violence and use the few resources available in the community to make complaints about violence. They do not do so because there is a bad communication or a little bit perhaps somebody crossed their boundaries. You don't go through this unless there is something more on the line. And using these descriptions of violence is, in my opinion, nothing more than to normalize the normalize the rape culture. We must teach good communication and setting goals, but we do not use the description of violence. Of course, we have to train inside workplaces, good communication, and do not, listen when somebody is telling you about their boundaries or something like that. That's very important, but we cannot talk about the violence in the workplace as a bad communication or something like that. And in Iceland, it has repeatedly been shown that the judicial system does not deal with sexual offences in any context with the frequency and severity of offences, not at all. And I think that is the case in many other countries, or if not all other countries. Survivors are bound to go through a personal civic matters if they want fair case. But that is not a good option, like a specialist said in the interview recently. In these cases, the victims are often young women, and using those precious years as a young woman having a case in court is a terrible thought for most people. You don't want to go through that, both if it's like on a personal time or it's in your workplace. And it's even more so because if you have a case inside your workplace and you go through with it, it's most likely you lose your job. That is kind of almost always what happens. And you don't want to ruin your career so young, because victims are also young in those cases. This is an Icelandic, but can you see my mouse? So this is a list of all like help you can get after you have experienced violence. Most of it has been started and are run by the Women's Rights Association, no, the women's movement in Iceland, sorry. And it doesn't make sense. It's from the director of the women's shelter, who had this feminist, had this Facebook post. And even though the Icelandic, I wanted to share it with you. It's like all of this is like after you've been through violence, and this one here is for for perpetrators. We are not even working with like potential perpetrators or people that boys or men that have been behaving in a certain way, which is like likely to become perpetrators or something like that. So we're like working on the wrong end, I think. Okay, after last Me Too, the associations of unions and the Women's Rights Association sat together with the women who owned the stories of the last Me Too movement. And we made like a list of what should be done for workplaces, for unions, for the authorities, and so forth. And because I work inside the labor union, I put this down for my workplace, and also for other unions. And this is just something that it's like clear that needs to be done. And some good ideas. But it is a lot, about education. We have to educate, and we have to make violence like we have to, get violence, sexual violence, on a place where it's not so hard to talk about. And it's not like something like, please don't talk about it here, like in some workplaces. So, you know, some workplaces have just put up a poster, like it's okay to talk about it here. I personally, I believe in the union representatives, like that kind of net, to actually educate them so they can go to their workplaces. I don't know if in your countries, what about how labor unions work there, but this is something that makes sense for us. And what shall I point out here? Yeah, also to use like workplace inspections to actually talk about sexual violence, you know, and give people leaflets and stuff about the information on that. And every union should have a specialist in gender equality. Yeah, you can see the others. Nothing of this has actually, you know, no, few of these have actually been enforced. So I really feel that we know what to do. We know what we have to do, but we are not enforcing it. We're not doing it. Yeah. Yeah. I think I just stop here and maybe we can just start a conversation if there are any questions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Fríða. This was very interesting and insightful, at least for me. I hope for everybody else as well. Do we have any questions? If you have questions, feel free to unmute yourself. If we get a lot of people talking at the same time, I will take control, but I think it's okay for anyone who has a question to raise one.
Or just a comment or whatever.
Or a comment,
you know,
or if you
yeah.
want to share your own experience,
Yeah.
or how things are being done in your home country, that would be also very interesting. Yes?
Yes.
Anna Maria, can you, I can probably unmute you.
Yeah, I can unmute
Yes.
myself.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes, I was writing the questions and it's always interesting for me to, that's why we have Icelandic partner, and it's always interesting to hear experiences from Iceland. And yes, I have to tell you that we from Croatia, we always think how Iceland is on the top, you know, of regulations and measures regarding the gender equality. And on the other way, now when you showed slides, yeah, I was thinking, okay, when we talk about issues of sexual harassment, I think we are kind of the same, but we also have here Dunja, our colleague, who yeah, is waving, and she can maybe tell you she did research. But okay, now I will not talk about her. She can say because she has really new data. Anyways, I have few questions which I'm interested in. So when you were talking about these groups from, if I understood, from the movement 2017 when it started, and when the groups came out with the stories, and you said like 30 groups were like, I believe women in the different sectors were telling the stories and coming.
I think we lost Anna Maria for a while there. There you are again. You froze.
Okay, sorry. My internet connection is unstable, which is crazy because I'm just here, but okay, next to my box.
It stopped when you're asking about the different sectors.
Different sectors, yes. So I just wanted to ask, what is your perception, or do you know what was the most visible, you know, in the public, the group which made the most attention to the people on Iceland? Like, what would you say? Are these women from, as you said, minority women, or some or banking sector, or I don't know. So that's one question. I have more.
Okay, it's a very good question, because it depends on like how you look at it. Because the most vulgar, most disgusting stories were from the women with foreign background.
Yeah.
So, but the first one was in politics, and there was so much pattern in the politics, because you could see like completely the same action of a perpetrator in 62 or in 2002. You know, it's like it's like it's learned, like how to be a perpetrator. You know, it's so crazy. And I also remember the stories from the university. That was very shocking, because he thought that the academia would actually be more nice, because but those were very men are really using their power to hold women down.
Yeah.
Like really. The ones who got most attention, maybe that is in theater.
Same
Because
here.
because those I don't know, just speculating, like those are very famous men. I say famous people, and
that's it.
and this was it was both very ruthless, and they really grabbed young women and started like violating them like early on, like with all the rape culture triangle, like with all the things in the bottom, just to and then rape them. Am I forgetting something? There were so many groups, but I think that those were like the top, the top. Weird to say, but yeah,
The
that's
most visible.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. It's interesting. Almost same. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dunya, but almost the same here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same, and it's shocking that Iceland is not different from Croatia, because we always think that we are the bottom of the barrel and the last station in hate and the last hell, the cycle of hell here. But yes, the actually it's really the same. And I recently did a research on sexual harassment at work, and I got results. My goal was first to see the prevalence, and the second to see if the companies have some sort of prevention system, because according to the employer's law, they should have a system, either by the rule book or with the collective union contract. And they also have to have this person for the protection of the dignity of workers. And this rule is for the firms who have 20 or more employees. And what my research showed is that at least I was asking the employees, do they know about the prevention system? So 44%, more than 40% said that there are some rules, or that there is also the person for protection of the dignity. But it's a shocking that more than 50%, either actually 20, around 1/4 said no, there is no rule book, no, there is no one to protect us, and or they don't know, in the 20, also 25%. But it's also when I was listening to Frída's presentation, I saw also some similarities between Croatia and Iceland, because when I look at this rape culture pyramid, at the bottom is this normalization, and most of the people who were answering the research, most of the respondents said that they actually were verbally abused. Verbally, they so that's, and then it goes up and up. Only like really a small percentage of rape or it showed in the research, but it really followed this pyramid. So at the bottom is some sexistic jokes, misogyny, rape jokes, or comments about the body parts, and then it goes up to the rape. And it's also similar situation in Croatia. So Anna Maria can correct me if I'm wrong, but in 2018, after the Me Too started globally, we didn't see so much. It was not so dominant in Croatia, but now at the beginning of this year, we have some regional, let's call it Me Too movement, where a woman who is an actress, and she's from Serbia, so not from the Croatia. She stepped out and said that she was abused and raped by her drama teacher when she was when she was like teenager, and that opens the whole issue of actually sexual harassment at the not workplace but the universities. So
Yeah. So have you published any of this founding in English? Or
I only have a summary of results in English, but I will send it to Anna Maria and Lana so they can send it to you then. Or I can if this email that you sent me send me the link for the Zoom meeting, if that link is if that email address is working, then I can send you an email, the summary of the research through that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So
have you heard? No, I'm gonna ask you. Have you heard of any like actions from labor unions? So how is that working in Croatia? Have anyone stated a help or sorry?
I only know that the one trade union is going to do the research on sexual harassment, but they that's all. I don't know, Lana or Anna Maria, do any other information about that?
Yes, I would agree. I would say that in Croatia, trade unions are still not that active in this field of gender equality. But yes, we have one union, as Dunja said, that is now doing some research about sexual harassment in the workplace. And that is that was actually my comment, Anna Maria. I know you already had a second question, but I just popped in. I'm so sorry. I was going to say that the unions are not that active here, and actually the only, or I would say the major body that deals, or institution that deals with this kind of cases is the Ombudswoman for Gender Equality. So my question was, what role do equality bodies or ombudspersons have in Iceland? I'm sorry, in this field or in these matters. And also you were talking, you touched upon a bit about court proceedings, how the victims are really reluctant to start court proceedings. And it's also the same in Croatia, especially for victims of sexual harassment and generally speaking, victims of discrimination, because they're really, they cost a lot. It's the burden of proof, it's really hard to prove something. Also, they don't have the public on their side usually. Also, we don't have much court practice, and the court proceedings are long and expensive. So you usually, don't end up with a decision that is in favor of victims. So my question was, in Iceland, do you have some other legal proceedings, or what do you think, what other proceedings could or should be put in place in order to, kind of prevent or sanction these kind of cases, in a quicker or faster way? Because we do have a criminal law, and obviously they should be criminalized, but it's really worded in a sense that it has to come from someone who is above you in the hierarchy, not from your colleague. And also we have some other, I don't want to go into too much details, but we have some other problems that, really kind of slow also these criminal proceedings. But, sometimes these sexual harassments that happen in the workplace do not always fall under the criminal law, but, are still very damaging to a person, to a woman. Yeah. So I would be really happy if you could tell us, about some of your experiences and how you deal, or you think we could deal with these kind of cases. Thank you so much. And I loved your presentation. It was really great. And I was also shocked, as my colleagues, that you guys on Iceland are not that better than here in Croatia. Thank you.
I almost, because, it's such a great questions you had. I almost want to just leave the meeting, close my computer, because I have no answers. There's nothing positive in these cases in Iceland. There are 2 court cases which related to sexual harassment in the workplace. I think I'm still right. I have maybe not been catching up 100%, but it's almost 2 cases. And we had a Me Too meeting. The trade union association had a meeting 2 weeks ago, and the last question was does anyone here at the meeting have any positive story, for the victim? And there are none, not in workplaces. And I remember the facilitator of the event. He said, the trade union, how do you say it? The role of the trade union in these cases have been to get an okay agreement. How do you say, the end of your work agreement? Yeah. So that is the only thing that they've done. But they have all lost their jobs. Yeah. But there is one kind of resource that we have in Iceland. I don't know how to talk about it in English, but the person working for that is at the meeting. I could maybe, Arnar, could you tell us? And it's actually my husband, because we live in a very small society. So maybe he could tell us a little bit about, because victims have said that in researches that is actually something that worked.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Arnar. Good to meet you all. This is something that a handful of institutions in Iceland have done. I think not a lot of corporations. I don't know about the unions, but some of the government institutions, like the church, National Hospital, and where I work, University of Iceland. They call it in English a professional council. So it's basically a council of 3 people. And so basically, if there's a complaint, it goes directly to them. If somebody complains to somebody else at the university, they have to send it as well directly to them. And this is against a lot, how these things work, because there's a huge problem is that people generally don't just trust an organization or a corporation with their case or their story. So they need like people to trust. So what we have is like these are 3 people, and the head of the council, like by definition, is somebody who doesn't work at the university. So this is to make sure that it's not just like an internal sort of situation, and then it's kind of like step by step that like, okay, I have a complaint, and I can like send it through email or send it through a form, or I can just call her directly, like to have as many ways possible to make the complaints. And then usually like she will talk to them on the phone, or they will meet up, and then you kind of have the opportunity to know like what is the process going to look like, and get the feeling for this person. Like, do I trust this person to like take my case? And then you will meet the rest of the council, like 3 people in total. And after that, like you kind of decide, and also like with the permission of the person who's making the complaint, like if you then go and talk, they will go and talk to like the other person, and then they make a recommendation at the end. Like sometimes the recommendation is like that somebody be reprimanded or something like that. Occasionally, like the person making a complaint just wants to be able to walk around campus, go to this and this building without meeting that person. So sometimes they try to, like make some kind of agreements. Yeah, and we feel this is like work for us, and partly due because I feel we've been really lucky with the person who's running it, but like a structure that is as autonomous as possible, and like so they like are completely in charge of how they run the case. Then it goes to management like afterwards,
Okay, thank you. Can I just ask a question? I'm so sorry. So it's a professional council, and the head of the council is independent, meaning he doesn't work, let's say, for an employer, so it's like on an employer level. Okay, that's great. We have something similar as Junia talks about it, but it's one person, and it's employed. It's an employee, so people don't trust it. And now the trade union are trying to kind of by collective agreement make this person to be someone who was approved by the workers, so they can put more trust into, so they can have more trust into this person. But I'm not sure still how that will work, because if someone is employed, and he is still kind of the employer has some sort of power, because he can always fire them. So this is, I think, great. So this head of council, so he's like someone from out of, he works somewhere else, or how does that work? That's one question. The other question, when it goes to management, does the management still have the final decision, or are the recommendations mandatory?
So in our case, yes, final decision is so this is not the decision making like mechanism structure, yeah. So they make a recommendation, and then it's up to management to make a decision. And so the people who get this kind of not ruling or verdict, but like recommendation is like both of the people, like the person who complained and who was complained of, and then like the boss of sometimes both, and then also the head of the university, the rector, so to make sure that there's knowledge in more places. So yeah, that it's management decision, absolutely. And so the person who heads the council is like the stipulation is that they are not employed by the university or full-time. So what we've had in the last few years is a person who's a psychologist. She works independently as a psychologist. And before, we had somebody who was a psychologist who worked at the National Hospital. So, and then the other 2 are people who are appointments made, like one by Human Resources, and another by, I think, the Office for Student Counseling and Services. and these have always been like academics. So now we have one who is actually Finnborg, one of the people that Fríða quoted before, who is in gender studies, and then one law professor. Tends to be helpful to have at least one lawyer in these kind of.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Arnar. This is really insightful. And just to add to this and to make it maybe even easier for people to seek their right within the workplace, is that the workplace has a non-retaliation policy, so that you can always be, you can be unafraid of, you don't have to fear losing your job or being, punished for coming forward. And in that sense, maybe also anonymity should also be considered, I believe. So I think these are things that are really something that is very important to consider when setting the policy. But of course, it lies within the management of each institution or organization to decide how they do this, but they do show social responsibility by doing this. Absolutely.
Yeah, because in Croatia, we have a law, we have a definition of the sexual harassment, we have, so it's not just, it's in the work law, in employer's law, and it's in the criminal code. But what is missing is the procedures.
Exactly.
So how person can report, how the person who is taking the complaint should act, and those things are missing. And what is really missing is also the educations.
Yes.
Because I know that in some states in the United States, they are obligatory, but not in all states. But for example, in Croatia, it's it's something that the employers are not willing to do. Maybe they are not aware of the consequences, still not aware of the consequences of not educating their employees, and also employees are not aware of their rights. So it's on the both sides. And what really struck me, because I asked in my research the question, why didn't you report the incidents of the sexual, not just incident, but occurrence of the sexual harassment? And most of them, some 50% of the answers were because we don't trust our employer. It's not, I'm afraid. Yeah, there was answers like, I'm afraid that I will lose the job. I'm afraid of retaliation. But the first, the majority was, we don't trust that our employer will do anything to protect us.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So we have about 6 minutes left.
Yeah, I have one. There was a news yesterday. There is a survey company called Gallup. It's everywhere, isn't it? Yeah. So they do a survey every month or something. It's like the pulse of the society. That's the direct translation of their, but I think it do it everywhere. And they actually made a Me Too question. And I just saw like a small news yesterday, and I sent them an email, and I just got it because I wanted to tell you about it, because there were so many people that have actually noticed this new Me Too movement, and it actually gone further than the other one, because there is like a face behind the story. And I think that's like a huge difference than from the first wave we had. And they're asking like how many have noticed Me Too, and it is 80%. Yeah, it's 80% that have actually like noticed it. But of course, more men than women, women than men, and educated women. yeah. Sorry, I didn't even read it through. And do you are you positive about that we are talking about these things? And that is like 90%. So I think, just that Gallup, this I have asked them to, ask questions about the violence. There was like no way, maybe 10 to 15 years ago or something. So we are, we're always changing a little bit. So they find it, and nobody, sometimes people pay them to answer, ask questions, but they did it themselves. So there must be some feminists working there. No, I'm joking. I don't know, probably.
But
yeah. So
just that, the change that we feel, and the impact that the first Me Too movement had helped us, of course, in this second wave, that we are going much deeper into the discussion, and we are now addressing the perpetrators and the how can we help them stop being perpetrators? How can we educate our boys, and how can we raise our young ones to become, good citizens that do not use violence as a measure of power?
yeah, exactly.
I think even though these are baby steps, they're still baby steps.
Yeah. And the one question is like, have you talked about those issues, like sexual violence with somebody else? And it's 50%. So actually, it's actually raising awareness, and it's getting people to just, to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's very, a step forward, at least.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I think it's really important to shift the paradigm from, how victim, in this case, because the majority of women, how they can protect themselves, to how the men will stop all this abuse of power. And also, I think, especially in this context of the workplace, it's important for the employers to understand the consequences, not just on the victim, but also on the working environment, on the firm. And also, I think that state as such has to understand the consequences that allowing sexual harassment at work to exist on the GDP, because I read the research about Deloitte Australia that really showed the linkage between sexual harassment at work and the GDP. So it's all connected, and we have to, I think, in the whole story, in the whole narrative of prevention of violence against women, this interconnectivity between things have to be emphasized.
Exactly. Yeah. I've actually come to the same conclusion. I remember a guy just after Me Too. He was from this inspection, vinnueftirlitið, like an institution who is supposed to work against sexual violence. And he said it's better to have one awkward coffee break than to have like a huge problem in half a year, and just to stop all jokes and all comments, like when they happen, because it is part of the same problem.
It's the root of the problem, right?
Yes. And it's, the triangle, it's very simple. Some feminists have stopped using it, but I think it's so good to see it. Like, it's all interconnected, and it's all like, and we feel it and we know it. We know it's from the same root.
Exactly. On that note, we are out of time. I know we could probably sit here for a few more hours and discuss, but thank you, Fríða, for your valuable insight into this, and thank you all for your comments and the very useful discussion. There is another call in meeting in 15 minutes about the gender the equal pay standard. Arnar, you're raising your hand. Do you want to say something? Just to applaud Fríða. Yes, I agree. Thank you, Fríða. And do join us for the gender equal pay standard in 15 minutes. I will be there as well. So thank you all. It was a great hour. Great seeing you all.
Yeah, I had so much fun.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's so great to see,
you.
Hear from you. Like,
Yeah. Can we contact you if we have some more questions? Yes.
Oh yeah, I will probably contact you. I want like the results
Yes.
from the trade union.
Yeah. Super.
Let's stay in touch. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.
In a few
Bye.
minutes. Bye.
Bye.